So,
Okay.
my name is Marlon Ramos. This is Michaela. Michaela is our stakeholder. We will be presenting the Sunset Summit application. And my teammates are also online. This is a live presentation. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Jose, so this is Jose.
Okay.
Jose,
Sure.
you want to say what your names are? Jose?
Yes.
My name is. Go ahead, Jose.
Hi, my name is Jose Lara. How are you?
Hi there.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Charles?
And my name is Charles Henderson.
Hi there. Nice to meet you.
So this is our team. Charles is in Afghanistan. Jose is in the East Coast in New Jersey, right?
Yes.
And I am in the West Coast. So we came together to put this thing together. So just to give you an idea of what the application or application development requires, we had to first set up a server to host our application. We then had to create our application, but first we had to be able to figure out how to make a connection between our application and the server. Once we did that, then we had to put the code together to be able to access the server so it could give us the options to add, remove, and update tenants. So this was all guided by the software requirement specification. The software requirement specification, which is what I'm about to show you, that was our guide, our how-to guide. So this basically guided us as to how the application itself would be developed. The reason why I'm showing you this is because this is what shows us how we're supposed to do something. So this is what we as a team followed. This is Sunset Summit. It's a picture of it, and obviously it's a software requirement specification. The items contained within this specification are the use case diagrams. The use case diagrams are a diagram of each object when you create a database. For instance, the lease is an object. The tenant is an object. What else? So things like that, they're objects. In other words, what I mean to say when I say objects is you can create multiple instances or multiple copies of these items throughout your program, which enables you to essentially create an application. So you could see the use case diagram, the use case specification, which talks about what the objects do, and the user interface prototype. This is how the interface or the application should look. And then the entity diagrams, it just shows the interaction between those objects. The ERD, which is the entity relationship diagram, just shows how each object is connected to each other. The sequence diagram shows how each object relates to each other and the interaction between them when it accesses the database. The data sets are for instance, when you input an object's name or last name, the data set and attributes tells it what type of data you want to use, such as like numbers or characters or stuff like that. The data set dictionary expands on those data types, and the SQL script is the server script that we have to develop to be able to access database records or information like tenant information, for instance. And the query is also code that allows you to basically filter out information that you want. So if you wanted to search for a certain tenant, you could use a query, or you could query all, and it would display everything. So let me show you quickly. I'm gonna run you through it quickly. So this just tells you what the application is based off of. Our Sunset Summit gated community application is based off of Sunset Summit, which is what we're in right now. The goal of the application itself is to enable you as a manager to be able to access tenant information, to add a tenant, to remove a tenant, or to update a tenant, as well as sending them an email in case their rent is due. for the 30-day notice or a 15-day notice, or if they've paid their rent, you could also do that. That's what this talks about. And our goal is to basically develop the application and provide you scalability. Scalability, what that means is what you see now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's the end product. Scalability provides you the ability to expand on a product. So for instance, if you wanted further abilities for the project, scalability provides you that option. So if you wanted in the future, say for instance, if you were the owner of this community and you wanted to build the project, that scalability provides us that option to build on that project. So these are the use cases that we'd be using. So the basic options are create a tenant, find a tenant, remove, update, and save. Those are the use cases, which basically they're objects. And it tells you right there the use case diagram. So when a manager creates a tenant, the selection, the tenant is realized or created, and then it is saved, and then it is sent to a database. Likewise, if you want to find a tenant, the find creates a tenant object, which it pulls from the database, and it sends it back, and etc. And then so to kind of go over a few things, so the use case specification tells you what it does, so what the object does. So for instance, find tenant, it allows you to search for a tenant with certain information. When you press the find button, it sends a request to the database, the DB. The database then gets the user data and reflects the object back to the manager. This allows the manager to update the tenant or to remove. Obviously, to save, the same idea. The application would request information from the database and then provide the manager the abilities to save tenant information. This is how the user interface, that's how we wanted it to look. And this shows you the input for all the tenant information. So you got your tenant object, you got your rent object, you got your lease object. Whenever you create a new tenant, a new object is created for all these three items. But they're all linked to that one tenant right here. And then if you populate a list using a search all tenant, this is how a list would look. And then this is how you would input information or update information. That's how it's supposed to look. You're going to be able to see that when we run the application. But the entities or the objects, this is what goes behind the object. So for instance, the contact object contains all these items, what we call attributes. The tenant is linked to the contact by an ID. And the lease is linked to the tenant by an ID as well. So is residence information and invoice information. So all that, basically, we have one type of ID or point of reference that we can use to link all these objects together, which allows us to search for data. And then you could see how these objects are linked. So the main object is the contact. The contact, we create an object called tenant from that contact, which allows us to create a lease and link it to that, which we then link the lease to the residence, which we then link to an invoice. This is the server interaction. So when you create a tenant, you get a dialog box, and then it sends a request to display the tenant. If it's not there, it'll ask the database to create a new tenant, and then it creates a new tenant, database right here, and then it sends back the user information to the manager. And then this is a little bit, it expands a little bit more on the context. It's it's the same thing as the as this right here, but pure text versus a diagram itself. And then these are the dataset dictionary, which tells you what type of characters. So varchar is the equivalent of a character versus an integer, so like
The number.
a number,
Gotcha.
right?
Okay.
So that's what the input requires. And then the SQL script, I'll show you how the SQL script looks quickly before we run the application. So this is basically what goes into creating the database script.
Okay.
So it tells the database create a new table called contact, and these are the data types based off of that list. And then these are other tables, which the same idea. And then the insert statements, it inserts a new contact with the first name, last name, street, etc. And then you insert multiple items. So that's how the insert statement works, which allows you to find, edit, and remove tenants. Alright, so now to run the application. So you guys, Sunset Summit itself uses their own professional system. We haven't looked at it, but this will allow us the ability to compare to them and to see how we can build on this project and maximize the scalability of it. So this is the project itself. Normally when you build a project, you have a jar file. A jar file, it just means it's a Java file which you can just click and run from there, from any system, as long as you have Java installed. So here's our jar file. And this is how the application looks.
Cool.
If you wanted to I've taken the time, well, we've taken the time to input tenant information. So we'll find a tenant, and if I wanted to find all tenants, I could click the little find button, and I find the button. I find the tenant's information. These are the tenants, and here you are. If I wanted to find by first name, you could type any of those tenants, and then click find, and here I am. If you wanted to update the tenant's information, you click update, and what it does, it sends the request to the database, which is remote somewhere, and you can access this information and edit it. You can send me an email, so if my rent is coming due, I'll show you. So what email is there? The Gmail. So if we go to Gmail, I don't have any emails except that an account was created. And if you sent me, if you said, hey, we notice you're coming due within 30 days, so you want to send the first notice. So you send me an email saying, let's send Marlon an email because his first notice is due. So now I check my email, and I should have an email here.
Awesome.
And there's my email. And then it tells you Sunset Summit Gated Community. If my rent was paid, you can click send. You just paid your rent. It tells you just sent the information, and it should be there too. See that? Now, if you can update information if you want. So if you wanted to change my email or whatever, you can change that. If you wanted to change the start date, the end date of the lease, or rent information, if you gave me a discount, I could change that too. That would be nice. Or if you wanted to create a new tenant, you can create a new tenant. So go ahead and create a new tenant. And then we also have default settings, which says complex address. you see the date enter as,
Oh, okay.
depends on
Sorry.
the database, depending on which database you're using, and that's how you enter the data. Or how you program your database.
Gotcha. Oops. So testing.
So, that's one of the features that we also include when someone forgets to input data, for instance.
Okay,
We make
so
sure
it's
that
all this stuff.
all data, all user data is inputted. The same thing with date of birth, so same date, so it would be
Oh,
1995. Mm, Apartment number.
Oh, right here.
Okay. So you've saved the tenant's information now. If you wanted to go find the tenant, so you can click find.
And I'll put her last name in there. Oh, 'cause I put it in the first one.
So it doesn't find tenancy. They
Sorry,
aren't there,
I'm
which is
off.
which is a good thing. It's
Yeah.
it's showing us that hey, it's not finding tenants because they're not there. They haven't been.
There it is.
Otherwise, so if you wanted to update the tenant's information, you can update the tenant's information. Okay. If you want to send the tenant an email, you could send the tenant an
Mhm.
email. If you, let's say, if you wanted to get more information on this tenant other than what's currently displaying, you could get more information, and it shows you
Okay.
further information.
We could also add that would be like a feature could be added to it as a, let's say if you want to send a message to the person to the email, and send an email, we will have a window that you will type. You won't even have to type the email address. So
Mhm.
instead of copying the email address and put it into the, let's say your email to send in a message, you could send it directly from there
Okay.
and just type in the message that you want to send to that person.
Okay.
That could be a capability of adding something easily to.
And so this is all based on scalability, which for future projects enables us to, say, for instance, expand on the project if we wanted to. If you wanted to remove the tenant, it sends the request to the database to remove it. Now, if I find all tenants, your tenant shouldn't be there.
Hmm.
So, as you can see, your tenants is
Yeah.
no longer there. This is you. We created a tenant with your name, and you also don't have to. If you notice, you don't have to put the tenant's ID. It does it automatically for you. This is a suggestion that you gave us to make sure. Hey, we don't input the tenant ID. The system does it on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say if Michaela paid her bill today, and we wanted to send her an email at Michaela's email, it sends her an email, and you should be receiving an email
Okay.
at your personal email address. So that's our Sunset Summit application. Just so you could see understand what goes behind developing an application. This is a small piece of
Okay.
all the code required,
That's a lot of work, you guys.
and there's like 20 different objects.
Yeah.
So if you notice, this is all the code that goes behind
Each object.
each object, and then you have to link all the objects. So
Oh
it
my
just shows
God.
you, and it just keeps going and going.
That's awesome.
So this is what goes behind creating even though it's not,
A large-scale application, it can accommodate, you guys have 300 residents, right?
344.
Yeah, it can accommodate 344 residents easily, without a problem.
That's
And
really cool.
if you want it,
say for instance, if Sunset Summit hired us to create an application for them, we could use this application and basically exploit the scalability benefits that it gives us. So we would be able to easily expand on this application. And you
Cool.
could run this application on any machine since it's Java, as long as Java is installed.
Yeah. It's
So-
really nice.
What are your thoughts?
I think it's great. I mean, I know that when you had come to me, you needed to make the program. What kind of critique do you guys need when you actually present this to your teacher? Like, is it just because of you guys doing the coding? Do you need to elaborate on it? Like, how do you guys, how would I be the better asset for you guys?
They
to
didn't
critique it?
necessarily provide us a guideline as to what type of critique we needed, but based off of the experience that you have as a manager for Sunset Summit, what do you think, how do you think this application fared off without even looking at your application
Yeah.
versus yours?
Well, I like how it was straightforward. For the most part, it seems pretty simple in the sense of very user-friendly, which is really important in this industry. I mean, although we have a lot of data and stuff like that, we have a lot of trainees coming in and out, as well as other employees coming in from other properties. So I would think that it would be very easy to be like, hey, this is what you need to do. The only thing that I would think of, but again, I don't know if this is something you guys want to delve into, is if you had roommates. Like, it seems like the database of when you go to that screen is individually.
Okay.
But if you have, multiple people living in one home that are leasee holders, how would that affect how that would actually present?
Okay.
Would they be under that mainframe? Would it be would you be able to search versus a roommate versus a tenant, or like the main
Okay, so
tenant
like
holder?
having multiple tenants with one being the primary, for instance?
Yes, yeah, and so like, that's what I'm saying, like, do you guys wanna go into depth with that? Because that's the only thing that I was thinking that would probably be harder, other than always having to click all. Like, that's a great option, but when you're thinking of, let's say, 344 doors, and 50% of that has 2 people living in there, you're going to be scrolling through that list
Yeah.
drastically, you know what I mean? So how to make it ever more user-friendly.
Okay.
We have the option. I'm sorry to cut you off. We have the option where you could search by the apartment. Let's say the apartment number.
Mm-hmm.
If it is just a complex, we have it's separated by, I guess, by apartment number or.
Okay.
So if you search for apartment number, for instance, and let's say there were 2 tenants, let's say you and I were tenants and we were in apartment, let's say we have a character created already, apartment 10, so, so let's say we search for apartment 10. Whenever you search for apartment 10, what he's saying is, we have the ability to not only display this tenant,
Mm-hmm.
but display any tenants in apartment 10. So if this was the primary, scalability would allow us to display both tenants and say, hey, this is the primary. So if in case
Yeah.
tenant number 2 bailed out on the primary will still be held liable to make sure that he pays for whatever needs to be paid for.
Which I think that that's great. However, if you were, like, say for instance, you guys were trying to sell this program to me, my only hesitation to this would be, that's wonderful, but I'm able to search the main person multiple different ways, and this is only giving me one option really, to go to a roommate. So for how many people I see, how many files I see, am I gonna also have to be consciously remembering, oh, this is a roommate situation, now I gotta go to the apartment number.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So sometimes maybe just making it a little bit more straightforward, or a little bit more just user-friendly in that would probably be just better the program, to be honest with you.
Okay. So that's something that I think we can build on off of for future projects. But overall, how do you, given the fact that we never looked at the application that you're
Yeah.
using?
Yeah, this is, I like it. It's very straightforward. The mainframe that basically the database of being able to see that tenant main page, that's almost identical to how we have it set up. We have a couple more different tabs just as like a quick synopsis of what did they pay on their deposit? What is their actual history of seeing like what their rent is? But of course, those are all different pages, but on the actual mainframe, it's really basic of what you guys have, which is
Okay.
really good. I mean, it's awesome, all that work that you guys have done.
So overall, if you gave us a grade, from A to D, how would you grade us?
I'd grade you guys high. I would probably give you guys an A minus just for the fact of the roommate thing. That is really what would hold me up.
Okay.
It's just because I feel like it has to be fluid if you're going to go with this type of hypothetical situation of apartment homes.
So what if we went ahead and we added that feature? Would you give us an A
I would
plus?
give you guys an A because
Okay.
it's going to be flush with everything. For all the main stuff that I would need to do just to look at a household, everything was here.
Okay, cool. So that's it. My name is Marlon Ramos, and I presented the Sunset Summit Gated Community Application, SSGC application on behalf of our team, Jose, Lara, and Charles Henderson. And this is Michaela. Michaela, thank you for your time. We appreciate your time. We know you're busy, and that's
No
it.
problem. All right,
Yeah,
good
thank
luck,
you.
guys.
All right, bye.
Yeah, that was awesome. You guys have done a really, really good job.
Thank you.